evening, and welcome to the June 25th, 2024 regular meeting of the, you can't close it, Sheila, you have to leave them open.
You gotta leave the door open.
You're gonna leave them open.
Just one door?
Oh yeah, one's enough, yeah.
I know it has to, I know you need.
You should, we figured you did. Sorry, I
Just try to-
apologize for the interruption, for the millions watching at home. Welcome to the June 25th, 2024 regular meeting of the Town of Milton Select Board. I'd ask that everyone present please stand and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Some of you who are here in attendance know, and some of you who are home watching, that we begin tonight's meeting with a note of sadness and tragedy that has happened in our community this past 2 days. A young mother, a wife, a daughter, a friend to many, passed away suddenly yesterday on a morning walk, Cape Milton. As I said to school chair Lizzie Carroll in a meeting we were in yesterday, tomorrow is never guaranteed, so always appreciate today. So I'm going to ask for a moment of silence for everyone in attendance in her memory. She was a significant contributor to this town. She was a member of MFE. She was the founder, I believe, of Milton Porch Fest. It's the one thing, the way I know her the best is, anyone who knows me, music is very large in our family and our home, and we talked a few times about just different ways on different events, promoting music in this town. So I'm going to ask for a moment of silence, and then I know that Mr. Zoll especially is very close to her, and he is going to say a few things, and if any of the other members wish to comment, they may as well. So if you would all join me in a moment of silence for life, Kate Milton. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Zoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't want to go on for too long.
You can.
And many people in this town knew Kate very well. She was a lifelong Milton resident and friend to so many people. Her husband, Pat, we're keeping him and Sophie and Joe, their kids, in our thoughts and our prayers. Kate was just a consummate volunteer. She would do anything for anybody at any given time. Her love of Porch Fest, her creation of Porch Fest, I've got one of my many Porch Fest t-shirts on today in her memory. It's always been my favorite, and I've said it many times, my favorite event in Milton, because it's really just about everybody getting together and celebrating our town and celebrating music, and her presence is going to be just so deeply missed this year. So there is a GoFundMe that's been started up for her. If you're interested in supporting that, please email me, and I'd be very happy to send you the link to support her family, who are, I'm sure, just absolutely adrift without her in their life. Kate loved birds as well, as I also love birds, and I hope that if you're watching or listening or here tonight and you see a nice bird, whether it's a cardinal or a chickadee, just think of Kate and how much she brought to Milton and how she'll continue to be a presence in this town for many, many years to come. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Zoll. Anyone else? Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. We're going to move to item number 3, public comment. We allow 21 minutes total for public comment, 3 minutes per speaker. Mr. Milano will keep the total record of 21 minutes. They'll keep us within it. I will do each speaker at 3 minutes each. Last week we had a lot of speakers as well. And between Zoom and present, we did, every speaker got to speak within 21 minutes. So I'm hoping that we're able to do that tonight. So do we have I think we have a sign-up list already. So I'm going to try and do as many people in person first. I'll try to do as many people in person first because you've taken the time to get here, and then I'll alternate back. I see 12. I don't see any hands raised.
Not right now.
No, I don't see any hands raised. Well, that's a good thing. So we may be 2 weeks in a row. So the first on the list is my friend Sheila Varela. You get 2 minutes and 20 seconds.
I get 3 minutes here.
No, I'm
I'm
only kidding.
talker, so
I'm
you
kidding.
guys
3 minutes.
know,
Don't worry.
so-
I'll let you know. I'll let you know when you're at 30 seconds.
I got it here, just in case. Hi, my name is Shirley Egan Varela. I live at 70 Lyman Road, and I'm also a town meeting member, Precinct 8. I am here tonight to advocate for placement of the debt consolidation override to build a new school to be placed on our November ballot, and for the operational override, once voted at May town meeting, to be placed on a separate ballot in June of 2025. I have a little experience in this field since I've co-chaired the last 3 overrides and also served as precinct captain in 8 for the last debt consolidation overrides. My husband and I co-chaired 2006, Yes for Milton, with Kay and Dave Bullis over from Precinct 1, which we won. We also co-chaired Invest in Milton with Marianne Rull, a great realtor in town, in 2009, which at the time, Chief Wells was a big part in that success because he advocated for the safety part of it, which we had never had before, and I always am grateful to him for that because I don't think we would have won in the height of a recession without that. And in 2017, I wrangled parents Terry McNeil and Matt King when I was on school committee, and along with my good friend Kathy Fagan, who's a former select board member, we taught them how to run an operational override in 2017, Milton for All. And as I said, I also served for a debt consolidation precinct captain for Safe and Equal Schools, which finished Cunningham and Collicott, and also the beautiful renovation and extension of the Milton Public Library. And I'm just here to tell most of you who do know or don't know, it's really hard to teach people about Proposition 2.5. A law that happened in 1979 in our town, and turnout, no matter how hard you work, it's never that big in June, and you have to work really hard to educate them why we need it, where the cuts will be on operational overrides, et cetera, et cetera. And then debt consolidation is its own separate thing, and you have to explain why we need them for one purpose. And I think with the presidential election coming up, already getting a high turnout in November, not to place that and just focus on educating them about debt consolidation first, will have a better chance of winning, you'll build momentum, and then come June, you'll especially have that whole parent community. As most of you know, they're the ones that run the override, they're the ones that chair it, they wrangle all the precinct captains, and will achieve success in both arenas. Even this last big vote, we had the MBTA Communities Act. As you know, you chaired it, sir, for one of them, we still only had 40% turnout. We don't have good turnout in local elections. It's hard to get people to the polls. So why would you not use that November election and take the time this summer and early fall to educate them and win both times?
15 seconds.
If it all matters that I have won all those times and you value my opinion at all about how you get to win on both things, please separate them and do the right thing. Thank you for your time.
2:59.
True professional.
Lindsay.
I'll try to do 90 seconds and give my seconds to somebody else if they'd like it. My name is Lindsay DiGennaro.
You don't have to do that. Just take your 3.
I am a town meeting member for Precinct 6. I've been in Milton for 13 years. I'm a mom to rising 3rd and 5th graders, which makes me feel very old, at Collicott. I'm also the co-president of the Collicott PTO, and I have been for some years now. I know firsthand the support that the parents have given to our teachers who are being burdened with losing any kind of planning space, increased class sizes, so on and so forth. I voted yes on the land swap. I want to be here because, I'm here because we just can't keep pushing this off on our teachers and our students who are suffering from these increased class sizes. We're in closets. We're using our library. Everyone has seen it. It's real, and if we keep delaying it, it's only going to get worse before it ever gets better. I very rarely publicly speak about any of this because I like to be behind the scenes, but when I heard that the EA gave a very positive determination for us, and I still then heard that some of the select board members were hesitating on putting this on the ballot in November, I was like, why? We have the land, we have the plan, and now we have this government behind us, and I think it would be an extremely, extremely disservice to our teachers and our staff to keep putting this off on them to manage. And it's time the community steps up, get it on the ballot in November, and let the community decide, so that we can keep this moving forward, because it's really important. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jason.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jason Ehrenberg. I live at 68 Cheever Street in Milton. I vote with fidelity. I never miss an election, no matter what month it's, no matter when it is.
My fidelity's on the ballot.
And I express my opinions to my town meeting members, and yet this is my very first select board meeting, so I think it would be appropriate for me to thank you all for your service. You put in a lot more time than I do, and I think that deserves a lot of props. So thank you for that. I am supportive of the new school, and I'm here to advocate on behalf of the debt exclusion, putting that on the November ballot. I volunteer quite a bit. My job is flexible, and I have the good fortune to be able to go into the schools quite a bit, and I have seen the overcrowding firsthand. And it strikes me as common sense. Some others have spoken to this already, so I won't repeat them, but it just strikes me like this is needed. I've seen it, and I think it's going to get worse, and I think the costs are only going to go up if we delay. And I'm just curious, I think we could stand to have a lot more debate or discussion or understanding in this town, and I hope that we can move that forward, put it to the voters, let them know where they stand. If you're not in favor of this, I hope to learn why. And are you persuadable? Are there things that you can cite that could be overcome? Could we get to a solution that people could, a way that it could move forward that you would feel good about? So I'm here to both advocate and also to listen. Thank you for your time and your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Meg.
Hello there. This is also my first select board meeting, so thank you for having me. My name is Meg Dietrich. I live at 79 Martin Road. I am a Precinct 9 town meeting member and have been a resident in Milton for 15 years. I am here today to speak about the article that was in the Milton Times last year that showed pictures of the overcrowding issues in the schools. I had a unique opportunity last year where I was a substitute teacher for the math interventionist at Cunningham Elementary School. When I was hired to do this position, I knew it was only for a number of months, and the first question was, well, where will I be helping these students who are in need of extra math support? And where I was first put was in a hallway by a bathroom, which seemed very disruptive for these students. Second, I was in the assistant principal's office, which clearly was needed for other administrative roles and duties that were being fulfilled in the school. And lastly, where I ended up working for the following 2 months was in the 4th floor stairwell that leads up to the attic at Cunningham Elementary. I bring this to your attention because I know it was seen in pictures and I've overheard it at coffee break or other places where, oh, that can't be real. That can't be an actual situation where someone is teaching in that environment. And I really want to stress the urgency in these kids already needed extra support with math, and here they're being asked to be taught in a stairwell in an attic that's not meant to be an environment for learning. So I bring that unique perspective, and also just as a parent, I have a rising 7th, 5th, and 1st grader. My 5th grader has told me she can't eat lunch some days because she doesn't have enough time because of the amount of students that they need to feed. I know music is on a cart and it goes into these classrooms. I really hope that understanding the importance of class size and space is of value to the education of our students and the reputation of our town. So I urge you to put this on the ballot in November, and thank you for your time today.
Camilla. It's like being at the registry, waiting for your number to be called. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Camila Chaparro. I live at 19 Chilton Park. I'm also a town meeting member in Precinct 4. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and also thank you for putting the middle school on the agenda this evening for the select board meeting. I'm the parent of 2 sons. I have a rising 5th grader at Tucker and a rising 7th grader at Pierce. My sons will likely be too old to be students at the new middle school by the time it is built, yet I am still here urging you to move forward with the school building project and place the debt exclusion override on the November ballot. It is clear, and the last speaker made it even more clear, that we need to address in a more permanent way the overcrowding that our children have been experiencing for years. My older son was part of a half planet at Pierce last year, an additional team that had to be created at Pierce because his 6th grade class was so large. That half planet is going to be a full planet next year with the full amount of students, because the incoming 6th grade class is even larger than his was. So the overcrowding issue isn't going away, and while the schools have figured out how to make it work by teaching in hallways, by teaching in stairwells, our kids deserve better. Which is why I will also support, when the time comes, an operational override to address all of the other issues and needs that our schools have. I don't see this as an either-or situation. I think we need to make both happen for our kids. And a delay not only means more money, it means more kids learning in suboptimal environments. I know Milton takes a lot of pride in its schools and all that our children achieve. If you think about our one-of-a-kind French immersion program, our state champion football teams, our stellar theater programs at Pierce and at the high school, there's so much to be proud of. And we, like many other families here, I imagine, moved to Milton because of the schools. Our town remains a desirable place to live in because of the schools. Our property values remain high because of the schools. Investments in education benefit not just residents with children, but the entire community, both now and in the future. My kids benefited from the investments that were made 20-some years ago by our town to rehabilitate the schools. And so I'm now here asking you to please continue that legacy of providing for our children by doing your part in moving the school building project forward. Please place the debt exclusion override on the November ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cocello. Good evening.
Thank you
my
very
friend.
much.
How are you? Welcome.
Thank you. Tony Cicchello, Precinct 4 Town Meeting member, here to urge you to put the debt exclusion override on the ballot this fall and an operational override in the spring. In addition to being a town meeting member, maybe relevant here, I'm a past member, former vice chair and chair of the school building committee that rebuilt all 6 schools in the town 20 years ago. I'm also a former chair of the Consolidated Facilities Committee that was set up after that project to ensure the proper stewardship of our school buildings. And I bring these up in part because I think there are important inflection points that citizens and towns have, where they make important decisions that help chart the course of the town for years to come. I think the school building project back in the early 2000s was such a project, and I think we're reaping great benefits from that. I think the Consolidated Facilities Committee, setting that structure up, was something that paid great dividends to the town. Both of these projects took courage. The town borrowed over $100 million in 2000 when they decided to do this. Who would have, the town, I don't think it ever borrowed $10 million before this. It was an enormous commitment. Now, fortunately, we got an enormous funding from the state for that project, and it ended up being a $150 million project, and the town paid $30 million for it. But it was enormous. It took some courage on the part of the town at the time. It took some courage on the part of both the Board of Selectmen and the school committee and the school administration at the time of the Consolidated Facilities Committee to try a new system, for the school department to cede some control over its buildings to try to ensure the stewardship of them. They did that then. Now we're hearing from these parents who are living the situation where it's staggering how similar the discussion of the overcrowding in our schools is.
30 seconds. Sorry, 30 seconds.
All right. This is another inflection point. I think you've heard a lot about how important it is to educate people about the specifics of the override. I think that's much better done one at a time. And for those that fear that the town won't do one and then the other, I think the town is up for this challenge. It is a challenge, but it's going to require a lot of work. And I ask you to put these on sequentially. Thank you.
Thank you. Where are we at? Where are we time-wise?
7 minutes left. And one.
I got Meg. Meg's on the. Meg, you signed up twice? Pete Jackson.
There's one online. And we do have one online.
I'm going to get to it. I didn't have enough time to do both. That's why. I'll go to Phil Matthews afterwards online.
Good evening. My name is Peter Jackson. I live on Capon Street in Precinct 2. Thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm not opposed to schools. I've always supported every override and every school building project. I am opposed to this project as it currently stands because I don't believe in taking park and conservation land for building other public facilities. It's hard to get those lands, and I think that I'm opposed to taking those, and I'm opposed to the illegal process that was used to select this site that's being proposed for this. It was mentioned earlier that the Secretary of Environmental Affairs made a determination on a very small part of this project, and that had to do with the natural resources value. To me, what's more instructive is not what they did find, but it's what they didn't address and didn't find. The document doesn't determine whether the replacement parcels are eligible to be replacements. The Secretary specifically says that it does not indicate that the Secretary takes any position on the project or whether it complies with the EEA Article 97 land disposition policy. It doesn't review whether not only the land disposition policy, but whether it complies with the Commonwealth's no net loss policy. It didn't review at all the adequacy of the alternatives considered, even though many alternatives have been suggested to the school building committee and to EEA that seemed to be feasible. It didn't review at all whether the real estate appraisal that was part of the process and submitted by the town, whether it complies with the EEA standards for appraisals, even though it's very apparent that it doesn't apply and that the town's own contract with the appraiser was not fulfilled. It doesn't review whether there's two proposed land conversions. One is with the Conservation Commission and one is with the Park Board. And neither the town's submittal to the state
30 seconds, Mr. Jackson.
Whether the town's submittal to the state nor the state's response identifies that there are two different land conversions and that the proposed replacement parcel for the parks parcel has no recreational value and is polluted and full of buried debris. While a very developable parcel is being taken. We don't have the land, and there's no assurance that we will get the land. We don't have a cost. How can you ask the voters to sign away something, for a building when they don't know where it's going to be located or what it's going to cost?
Thank you, Mr.
So I urge you
Jackson.
not to put this on the ballot at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Matthews, can you unmute him?
Yep. 1 second, I will promote him now.
Mr. Matthews, you can start speaking. Phil, are you there? You need to unmute.
Here he comes now.
Okay.
Give him a minute.
Phil, can you unmute? Okay,
Sorry.
that's all right.
The selection only appears after you start, by the way.
That's all right.
I fear the select board may be, Phil Matthews, town meeting member precinct 3. I fear the select board may be moving toward the flawed decision of waiting to put the debt exclusion override on the ballot, on the same ballot as an operational override. I'm also told it's believed this gives the best chance of success for both, and Brookline is cited as a good example of success. But I think the wrong lesson is being drawn from Brookline's experience as it might apply to Milton. In the spring of 2023, Brookline put an operational and debt exclusion override on the same ballot. The operational override passed 63 to 39%, a 22-point victory margin that is not out of step with past Brookline successes with overrides. The debt exclusion override, however, passed 51 to 49%, a 309 vote margin out of 12,297 votes cast. Just 155 vote switches and the question would have failed. There was surprise, even shock in Brookline, since nothing even close to this had ever happened before. The lesson to be drawn from Brookline for Milton is that 2 overrides on a single ballot in Milton greatly jeopardizes the debt exclusion override. After all, Milton is not Brookline. Milton has had success with overrides, most especially because of the campaign committees who do the work. They come together in 6 to 7 weeks between town meeting and the vote, raise the money, develop the campaign strategy and messaging, produce the literature, organize standouts, literature drops, lawn signs, and get out the vote efforts. We are fortunate of success. Sheila Varela is an example of that. I think if you ask them, and I've asked a few that I've worked with campaigns on, they would agree that a standalone campaign in November for the debt exclusion provides the best chance of its success. Time is running short. This board needs to put on the agenda of its next meeting a discussion and vote concerning the November ballot question. The voters need to know where every member stands. 2 members are running for higher office and will be on the ballot in September and possibly November. I suspect most voters will want to factor into their consideration the positions on such an issue of vital importance to Milton and to those concerned about the educational welfare of our children. Please, don't make a very consequential mistake. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Matthews. That concludes Citizen Speak. Do we have any time? Did we go over?
There's a minute-ish.
Minute over?
A minute
We got
left.
it done?
A minute
Oh,
left.
we're done?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And move on to item 4, which is a discussion on this project. And I yield the floor to Mr. Milano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of the quick updates I wanted to cover have been more or less addressed during some of the public comments, but just to recap, we did receive a letter from EEA this week that in their determination, the replacement land included in the so-called land swap is of comparable or greater natural resource value. They note that the replacement land would create additional buffers and blocks of conserved open space and buffer wetland resources along Pine Tree Brook. That was received last week. The school building committee has continued their work. They met last night and did vote on a preferred layout of the school project. That meeting will be on the Milton Access YouTube page if it's not already. Today we received some follow-up questions on the legislation from Senate Council through Senator Timilty's office. So we've responded to one. We'll follow up on the other to clarify that. I did speak to Sean O'Rourke, who is available to come into a meeting to update the board on the project. And we had talked about doing that in July anyway, so he just confirmed he's available. And I think one component there is the cost piece of what the school might cost. And he is working to have updated forecasts for the select board's consideration. So that's just kind of some of the procedural updates. And I'm just going to do a very quick run through of some of the process elements here, just so we're all kind of on the same page. And I wanted to do this so that we could share what the process could look like for putting an operating override and a debt exclusion on the ballots, what goes into that, what the timelines are, and what some sequential options are, so that this board, as it considers its options over the next few weeks, has kind of all the information. So I'll run through those relatively quickly, and obviously if there are questions, I'm happy to take them and let the board discuss. And really, what I'm seeking to take away from this is, if there's information the board needs to kind of guide its decision making, let us know, and we'll be able to provide that so you can make your decision as you see necessary. So very quickly, Prop 2.5 restricts how much we can raise each year. An operating override would enable the town to levy additional taxes to go into operating budgets for town departments and school department. A debt exclusion is a authorization to increase taxes to pay for the debt service for a capital project over the duration of the borrowing for that project. Here is an example of what an operating override question would look like. Shall the town be allowed to assess an additional X number of dollars in real estate and personal property taxes for the purposes of funding the operating budgets? 2 votes are required. The first is a town meeting vote to appropriate a budget, and the second is a ballot question vote to approve the assessment of the additional taxes. And just as a note, it does not matter which order those 2 go in. The ballot question can come first, a town meeting vote can take place afterwards, or typically what you'll see is a town meeting vote will happen to approve a budget, and then a ballot question would follow. But either sequence is possible. Pretty much the same on a debt exclusion. The difference in the ballot question that voters see is that there isn't a cost associated. It just says, should the town be allowed to exempt from the propositions of 2.5, the amounts required to pay for the bonds issued to pay for the cost, in this case, design, construct, and equip a new upper middle school. So again, two votes are required here. A town meeting vote to approve a bond authorization, that is a 2/3 majority vote at town meeting, and then a majority vote at the ballot to approve the additional taxes. And again, this can also take place in whatever sequence is people view as best, and I'll have a little bit of table that shows what Milton's practice has been on that matter. So what are some potential options? This is a kind of a busy slide, but we've heard some of them already tonight. A school vote on the ballot in this November for the project, for the debt exclusion, with a town meeting vote either before or after that. And then if an operating override is necessary, do that in the spring, whether that's at the annual town election, at the annual town meeting, or then a special town election after the fact. The other option is to put them on the same ballot, again, something that was mentioned tonight at various times, and that could happen whether that's in the fall. They both could be on the ballot in the fall. The ballot question to set an amount for an operating override and to approve the school borrowing. What the override if the override were to take place in that sequence, what you'd be looking at is a request to increase taxes followed by an appropriation of those additional funds at an annual town meeting. In Milton, the budget has to be set at the annual town meeting. So the more typical routine is for an operating override to occur in the spring. And that's the third potential sequence here, would be that both votes happen in the spring, and it's really up to the select board as to when to stage those, whether it be on the annual town election ballot, a special town election, and so forth. And then just lastly, historically, what has happened in Milton. So we just pulled a few recent examples. May of 17, town meeting to set a operating budget contingent on a subsequent override that happened in June. That same happened in May of 2009, followed by a just June special election to approve the override. And then the last two debt exclusions, February of 21 to approve the fire station projects. And that question ended up being on the annual town election, the ballot question that went with it. And then in October of 05 was a special town meeting followed by a special election in November of 05. And lastly, why we're talking about this now is that to put this question or any question on the ballot in November does require the select board through the town clerk to notify the Secretary of the Commonwealth by the first Wednesday in August, which is August 7th. So
It's first Wednesday.
first Wednesday in August, August 7th. So that is why we're talking about this now. There is a deadline. And as we move forward over the next 4 to 5 weeks, this is the deadline that is in mind. So if there are questions, there's information that we can be helpful in providing to the board and to others on how to make this decision. We're available to help. So anyway, I just wanted to give that kind of overview to clarify and pick up on many of the public comments made today about timing and sequencing and what the options of the board are. So with that, I'll close my portion and turn it over to you, Mr. Chair.
Motion adjourned. Can we go home now? Even in the heaviest of decisions, you have to have humor. I say this very often. Mr. Cohen? Yeah, so I'm going to begin. Mr. Cohen, go ahead.
I know everyone wants to hear good news, so I'm exposing myself to getting thrown under the bus. But I feel I must do it for our schools and our town. I have grandsons in my mother. Should I start over?
Go ahead, start again, yeah. Hi,
Everyone wants to hear good news, and I'm exposing myself to getting thrown under the bus, but I feel I must do it for our schools and our town. I have grandsons in the schools. I toured Cunningham and Callicott last week. We need an immediate solution. I agree. The staff's doing an incredible job, but they are at the end of their rope. I, for one, will not forget them for what they are doing. But this urgency was exacerbated by spending 3 to 4 years chasing this land. And even with today's good news, it's still uncertain. I'm not comfortable with the speed at which we're going through the preliminary design and budget process in just a matter of weeks, actually days now that we're talking about it on the 9th. The latest update was that note, which we'll be making a cost presentation on the 9th. It's hard enough to establish a budget with a full set of plans in front of you and plenty of time. When we'll know the real cost is when the bids come in. If we're going to get a debt exclusion passed, I am told by those more knowledgeable than me that it's not going to be easy, and a key factor in its success will be building confidence in the budget especially. We've spent years on this process chasing the land. Let's not rush through the most important parts. The actual design, we've come all this way, but if we do rush through this early design and budgeting phase, then it's likely to change and the budget will, as a result, during the process. I cannot support scheduling an immediate debt override under these conditions.
Mr. Walsh, can
Mr. Zoll,
I ask
absolutely.
Mr. Cohen a quick question?
Sure.
Mr. Cohen, can I ask you, who wrote that for you?
I did.
You wrote that whole thing
Every
yourself?
word.
Okay, so you said in that, wiser heads than you have told you that this is difficult. Can you
I've talked to people around town.
So can you identify some of them?
I don't know exactly who it was.
But they're wiser than you, but you don't know who they are.
Yeah, well, they're more knowledgeable in the town than me.
But you don't know who they are.
I don't remember exactly who told
Zoll,
me.
Mr.
No.
Zoll,
Okay,
a
I'm just trying to
question.
I'm just
I
telling
feel
you.
like it's a fair question, Mr.
I
Wells.
know,
If he's
I
telling
get
you
it, I just-
us that there are wise people that are telling us something.
We're not in court.
One would expect.
We're not
I mean,
in court.
if they rode up on camels out of the east bearing gold, frankincense, and myrrh, then I can understand not knowing who they were, although you might have an idea. But if they're just telling you this, but you don't know who they are, I find that extraordinarily problematic. So, just a couple of quick things. When this town was asked by a number of citizens to have an election that was illegal, to violate a state law, we voted unanimously to support the town and have an election. Now we have folks coming up to us telling us that they want to have an election. They're not asking us what we think. They're just asking for the opportunity to vote. It's a very simple thing to ask for the opportunity to vote. That was what the MBTA override vote was, or the MBTA Communities Act was. And despite having strong misgivings, and despite having the opportunity to go to court to challenge the validity of having such an election, I felt it was our responsibility on the select board to listen to the residents, which we hear from members on this board all the time. Listen to the residents. The residents are speaking to us right now. And except for these anonymous wise folks, the folks who are here, who have given us their names, who have given us their addresses, who have told us who they are and what they do and how long they've worked in this town and how much they care for this town, they're just asking for the opportunity to have an election. That's all they're asking for. They understand how things work. And to say that this is going to be too difficult to do now versus in the spring, we've heard compelling evidence, and also our past history in 2005 and 2000, that where we've had a debt exclusion election in the fall and an override in the spring, that's the way that we've done it historically as a town, back 20 plus years. So the wiser heads in this room who have run committees, who have served this town, who have been in front of us, have told us this is the way to do it. And again, if you want to vote no on it, that's fine. If you want to vote yes on it, that's fine. But we should vote on it. And we know that in November, it's our best chance. And I say, if this board does not allow the citizens to vote in November on this, then shame on us. And it never should we ever pretend that we represent all of the citizens, because all of the citizens deserve a chance to have a vote. And if we don't give that to them, then we have broken our trust with the public. That's all I'll say.
May I comment?
All right, so let's before I go on, yes, look at, and I'm saying this as chair, and I give great deference to both Ms. Varela and Mr. Chico, who I've been in the trenches with more times than I can count. And I didn't expect Sheila to mention one of them tonight, but she did. And there are people, as you know, I mean, Chair Carroll and the superintendent, Nick, and I have been meeting now for over a month, weekly. The one thing, before you comment, John, the one thing that no one has mentioned in this room tonight, no one, which is the most significant hurdle, it is a Mount Everest type hurdle that is before us, is the dollar figure. This isn't about a vote of yes or no. We're talking about, and you heard Mr. Chicallo say this, we're talking well in excess of $100 million on the backs of the taxpayers by themselves. We've never, Tony was right, it was $100 million, and we got 90% plus $10 million from Copeland on top of it. It only wound up being 6 schools for $30 million. That was the third vote. It's the only time it passed. On the 2 priors, it did not pass. It failed as a debt exclusion twice. So historically, I get, emotion is not going to get us there. Strategy is the only thing that is going to win this override. There aren't many things I know a lot of. I know a lot about overrides in this town. Go ahead, Mr. Cohen. And then let's just continue with comments, but I don't want to go back. Go ahead, John.
My point here was exactly what was just said, is the budget. We're going to try to put together the budget in a matter of days, and it's just unrealistic. I was at the school building committee. We sat down. We had a end of July date, and it was a stretch to come up with a budget by then, to do preliminary design and come up with a budget. Now all of a sudden it's the 9th of July. It's a threat. It's a threat to the project too. If we don't have the money, we get into it. What happens? I mean, it's the schools too. We got to have the right budget, and we're cramming that into days.
Mr. Chair's addressing me.
Can
I ask a question? Can I respond?
Let me just, I'm going to try and put this to, only because as Mr.
I have an
Milano and
important
I know.
response to it, though, as well.
Okay. We have had Mr. O'Rourke in. Am I right? You can, I mean, with the chair, with the superintendent, no one can give us a number. We're here ballpark, and we've picked, and I said it. I said, well, I'm going out of this room, and I'm saying 150 million, and no one's told me not to. So, all right. Go ahead, and I want to give the other members a chance to speak.
Look, I lost a dear friend yesterday this town lost a real advocate yesterday. So if I'm a little emotional, it's because her memory is
I get
here.
it. We get it.
And so I apologize. And in the spirit of compromise and trying to come together, I'm just going to say a couple of quick things about the budget. As Mr. Milano indicated earlier, debt exclusions never have a number on the ballot. It's just not the way that they're written. So that's sort of a false concern. If Mr. Cohane really attended this, I'm sure you attended the school building committee yesterday, then he knows that the school building committee is narrowing down, they're working down the number. And he knows that they'll have the ability to continue to work down that number because the debt exclusion number isn't specific. They'll continue to be able to hone that number. So your hue and cry about us being fiscally irresponsible by pushing this is absolutely false. It's a lie. It's a lie. Yeah. And, excuse me, and so we have a school building committee. They are working on this. They're trying to refine the numbers. I don't know who, again, these anonymous wise men that are telling you that
they're not, we all get, they're not anonymous, believe me.
Okay, well then I would like some names, because if there are other select board members, then that's a violation of the open meeting law. Okay. If they're members from other committees, then that's potentially a violation as well. And I think that people should be asking questions, because I have to say, Mr. Cohane, you sit in the seat of someone who ran an honest and open and transparent campaign, and who was an advocate for the schools. And when the town asked him to put something on the ballot that he didn't like, he did it without question, he did it without reservation, and he fought. And you can ask everybody on this panel. He fought for the people who he disagreed with every ounce in his body. And I disagreed with him for that, but he did it because he knew he had an obligation to the town. You have an obligation to the town. You don't have an obligation to whoever that is that wrote that speech for you or helped write that speech for you.
I wrote the speech.
You don't have that obligation. You have an obligation to these other parents.
Mr. Zoll, enough. I mean, I've given you, I mean,
Mr. Wells, we have the ability to speak here.
I get that, but it's like, look, I've said this repeatedly. I said it before today. I mean, much of what is being driven is coming in here is emotion. And that part kind of bothers me because the two of the speakers who just left, and I include Phil Matthews as well as a third, the ability to win an override, an operational override, is daunting. When Sheila made reference, she referenced Chief Wells. Chief Wells got spanked by the Ethics Commission because I went so far as the police chief in fighting for an override that I dipped my foot in waters that I shouldn't have, fighting for it, because I believed in it. And I have that same...
Do you believe in this?
I do, but I also understand and I don't want, because I want to speak honest, I don't want to... I understand two things. No one, with the exception of the meetings that we're having so far, between the chairs and our financial people and the superintendent and Nick, no one understands, and no one on this board other than understands how critical an operational override is. In every fiber of me, every moment I've worked for this town, every minute I've ever given, tells me that first and foremost, that has to be what we have to protect above and beyond. Because especially the schools, as Bradley knows, how every dollar counts, the cuts to the schools, and you've heard me, Nick, I've said this to the superintendent, like, paint me the picture if you lose the operational override. They don't even want to go there. They don't even want to think about it. So to me, and look, there's no sides to me. I may vote a certain way, I may decide a certain way, but there's no sides. We represent the town of Milton, and if we're not unified in this and accept that this decision is going to take everyone in this town, because I'm telling you, this is hard. $150 million it's unprecedented. And if you looked at the list, we have never had an override on a presidential election of any type, ever. Ever. Am I right?
No.
All right.
You're
All
not
right,
right.
well,
In 2000, we had an operational override or debt exclusion.
it wasn't a presidential, though. I don't
It was
think
the presidential primary. It was an election.
Oh, primary, not on November 1. But this is daunting. You're talking 150 plus probably another 5 operational. There will be people in this town.
But just because it's hard doesn't mean we shouldn't do it,
Let me just
Mr.
finish.
Chair.
I didn't say, I never said we shouldn't vote.
Okay.
All I've said is, I'm being as strategic from my point. I'm going to be as strategic as I can in this. I did not, and you hear me every day. I've never altered in this, not one single bit. And I'll be honest with you. I've talked to as many former elected officials, from former town administrators, school committee people, select board members, moderators. Tony, I've been trying to get hold. I talked to his brother, trying to get a hold of him a week ago. Anyone who's been in this trench, who's been in these fights, who knows the difficulty of how hard it is. That's what I've been trying to do. Ms. Bradley, your eyes tell me you have something to say. Go ahead.
I just wanted to take a moment. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
Is your microphone on?
It is. I'm already good, Jen. been at this rodeo for a while. I wanted to say that there's been 2 instances since I've been elected where I have been inundated with emails. And the school building is the second one. I've been inundated with emails from our citizens from across the entire town. I've received at least 50 of them that say that they are in favor of putting this on for the November election, including, and I didn't count them this evening, but an additional, I think there's at least 7 or 8 here that are in favor of it. The people that are not in favor of it, I've received 2 emails, 2. I'm sure you all have received the same ones. If not, then we should be sharing the emails. But I really think that we can't ignore that, and we shouldn't ignore that. We have a responsibility, as we often say, to the entire town. And whether or not there's emotion behind it, there's emotion behind it because it's their kids. It's their kids that they're talking about, so of course there's going to be emotion, and there's no way for us as a body to ask people to not be emotional and passionate about something that they moved here for, something that they thought was going to happen, something that really impacts them and their decisions that they make as their children progress through our school. The cost. You said, Mr. Milano, during your presentation that Mr. O'Rourke is available to talk cost at the next meeting. Therefore, we will have a number at the next meeting, is my understanding of what was said this evening.
I'm not sure that's true. I do not.
He's
I mean, I've met
available
with
to
him.
talk cost.
He emailed me today, but he doesn't have a number, so I didn't.
Okay, so he says that he's available to talk cost, so maybe we should think about putting that
I'll
on
think about it.
for the July 9th meeting.
What?
There isn't a July 9th meeting.
It's the second Tuesday.
It's the second Tuesday.
I know. We already. I'm out of state. We decided we're going to take that week off. We're not meeting
I don't
till
know
the
that
last
we
week of
said, it's
July.
on our agenda here as a future meeting date. We did not take it off yet, Mr. Chair.
We usually
Okay.
discuss that.
All right.
Sorry, I'm not trying to be combative. I'm literally
No,
just
I
looking
get
at
you.
the agenda.
I get it.
Okay, so I think that the cost is a big issue, and I think that that's what a lot of residents are concerned about. However, in the time that it's been that we've been talking about this school building, just like the animal shelter, it has increased tenfold. And if we continue to stall another, as my colleague said, 3 to 4 years to find the land, which that was a process in and of itself, which I don't want to go down that road as to why that took so long. But I was here and I was doing the work on the warrant committee and on the select board when that was happening. So I have firsthand knowledge about why that took so long. But the cost is just going to continue to increase. So no matter what, the cost is going to increase
I get that.
to our residents. Okay. So the last thing that I wanted to say is that we've all taken hard votes on this. Well, most of us, except for Mr. Cohane, who's new here, but we've taken those hard votes on matters. I've not agreed with a lot of my colleagues. You all know that. It's public record. But I think that at this point, if we've got 50 emails, which is, again, the second most biggest thing I have been emailed about since I took office, the first being the flag, I think we owe it just to take a vote as a select board. And I'm here to tell you that right now, I will be voting in favor of putting this on the November ballot. And
That's your right.
No, I know that. I know that. But, Mr. Cohen said he wasn't, so I'm just, we're just going on the same thing here. I'm not criticizing anybody. I'm just telling you where I'm at, Mr. Chair. And I really think that this is something that needs to go to the voters, okay? And that's all I'm going to say. I'm trying to say it as respectfully as I can. I wish that the override or the repeal of the MBTA communities didn't have to happen, but it did. We can see from our neighboring cities and towns that there are debt exclusions happening for school buildings. There are overrides happening across the Commonwealth. We are not the only state or only town that's doing that. So for us to put this out there is something that I think our residents can handle 2 votes. They can handle the vote in November and they can handle the vote in June. And that is something that I think we owe them, is to have two bites at this, right?
That's your opinion.
It is my opinion.
I'm fine with it. That's fine.
It is my opinion.
Ms. Musto.
Thank you. First of all, just to point out on our agenda, this is an update.
No, we're not voting. No, we're not.
It says nothing about a vote or even discussion. It's an update. But now that we've gone into some discussion.
We can discuss on any item that's on the agenda. We're discussing the school
Excuse
building.
me, I'd like to please just speak.
You're making a point that's not
Mr.
correct.
Zoll,
Excuse me, Mr. Zoll.
please.
Go ahead,
have
Ms.
a minute.
Musto, go ahead.
Please.
That's fine.
Can you please stop interrupting me?
I'm telling you to go ahead.
I can go ahead. I will. Thank you very
Okay,
much. I
you're
don't need
welcome.
your permission. I can do
I'm
that.
not permitting
Thank
you on
you.
this
Could you
end to do
please
it.
stop? Please.
I'm stopping.
Okay. So what I'd like to say here is that I remember when the override went through and my children were young and they did all the schools. That was a tough sell because it's a lot of money and we were so fortunate to get 90% reimbursement, and that was still a hard sell. We don't really know the cost at this point, and that's a little bit problematic. And I think we just don't have the information. We need the information on how much this is going to cost because we are not getting any state funding for this. And so that will be on the backs of the residents. And so we have an obligation to do what's right in this town fiscally, and we have to have numbers. We need that information. And that takes some time to get the proper numbers. And we also know that our experience has been with any project that we've pretty much ever done, except for probably the library, they've all run over budget. So I think there's going to be a factor with that as well. As far as when we should put it on, it's hard for me to determine when I don't have numbers in front of me and I don't have a chance to look at that information. I think it's a little bit premature without seeing that information. And it's frankly a little irresponsible because people want to know that we want to do the right thing for the students, and we understand there's overcrowding. I don't think there's anybody sitting here that disagrees with that. I think we all could agree with that. But people want to know what's going to come out of their pocket and how much that's going to cost. And I think we have that responsibility. And so as far as whether we put them together, separate, timing, for me, I need to see the information first. And I think it's a little premature for me at this moment to say June or February or November or whenever. Need to see the information because we have responsibilities to the residents. And as far as the comment about people not sending us letters or whatever, people stop me because they know I'm on the select board. I go to different places in town and they talk to me about issues, as I'm sure they do as with any of us. Well, I mean, I hear what Ms. Bradley's expressing, that people should send letters forward. But I will point out that it's difficult for some people to do that when you look at how other members on our board treat each other.
It's true.
People don't want to always come forward and be the brunt of ridicule either. So I think that's really important to realize with people. And I can tell you from my own profession, a lot of times people will tell me things in confidence as I work in the healthcare field because they trust that I will keep their confidence. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Musto. Mr. Zoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Can I just ask?
Wait,
Oh.
Mr. Zoll. Mr. Zoll.
I know, but I just wanted to ask a procedural thing.
You all right?
I'm okay with that.
Can we have Nick
Mr. Milano?
Can we have Mr. Milano? I know you use that for men and not women. I know, I got you. Can we have Mr. Milano? You did it during Citizen Speak. It's okay, Mr. Chair, I got you.
I did?
Yeah, you did. You can go back and watch. You used all the women's first names and all the men's last names. But we're not going to go with that right now. Can we ask Mr. Milano what exactly a debt override looks like, or a debt exclusion looks like? Because it's different than an actual operational override.
You mean on the ballot, or
It's his first. It's his first.
And you can, and I don't care what way we take it, but not on the ballot, but how it actually impacts our residents, because it impacts it differently than it does an actual override. There's different metrics of how we actually tax folks. So I think if we're going to get into what this looks like, and we don't have to do it tonight. If we can do it on July 9th, that's fine too. But I think that we need to explain to people that there's a difference between an override and a debt exclusion.
It's still an override, but it's a debt exclusion.
Right, so, but there's a difference in the way that people are taxed, and I think that that is really important, that we educate our residents about that difference. And I don't care if it happens tonight or if it happens July 9th. I just really think that it's important that we are upfront and also educational about the difference of these two things. I'm sorry, Mr. Zoll, please continue. I just wanted that to be on.
Yeah, I'm happy to, Mr. Chair, just quickly. So we have been in touch with Sean O'Rourke about that question, and we have, based on, awaiting some cost numbers, it's hard to map that out, but we been in touch with our financial advisor to prep them, to let them know that this is coming, and it's coming alongside potentially an operating override, and have had some preliminary conversations about how to structure when to borrow and how that would then affect folks' taxes. So the other element that is tricky to time this out is when it will or could be approved, because that'll affect when we borrow money and when we have to start taxing folks. So long story short, we will likely bring the debt on slowly and borrow a certain amount up front and then use that and then borrow a second amount and then maybe a third amount. So folks' taxes, debt service payments for this will increase over time, not necessarily all at once. An operating override, if we increase the tax levy by $5 million, everybody feels that impact of the $5 million in year one. With the debt exclusion, that's not necessarily the case. Once we have more particulars on the amount and the timing, we can give an expectation of what people should expect and when, based on timing and total cost numbers. So it's something we'll work on. But at the end of the day, yes, a debt exclusion usually builds up more slowly over time, over a couple of years.
Thank you.
Return to that.
Yes.
Thank you. So, Ms. Musto, you and I don't see eye to eye, and sometimes when you make a statement that's false, I sometimes can't help but jump. And
Let's stop
my
at the
fault.
false. We're not in court.
It's my fault. I'm apologizing because sometimes people say things here that are not true, and it's their right to say that, and so that's fine. What we've heard tonight is from a majority of citizens that took up almost the entirety of Citizen Speak in one direction, with one exception, Mr. Jackson, who I know and respect and used to be my neighbor. But with one exception, we've heard from everyone in favor of this. When we were debating the MBTA Communities Act, we also had full citizens speak, and guess what? It was not all one-sided. It often went back and forth. It went back and forth, and it went back and forth, and it went back and forth, and we still had the election, and we let the citizens decide. We may have people whispering in our ears or telling us things in private, in secret, that they feel one particular way. But as a select board member, all I can say is the town right now is hearing one voice very loudly on this, saying that they would like an option to vote. That's all they're saying. And to the debate about the numbers, we know that the number will almost certainly change over time, as it always does. But we know what the ballpark is, and we know the school building committee is working on that, and we know that by the time that the ballot question is passed, we will have a very clear number. But the people who Mr. Wells talks about, who are the volunteers, the people that put in the hard effort, that get in the trenches, that do the hard work to make this work, they're the ones who are here in front of us now telling us that they want to do that work now. And so to say that it's going to be hard, nobody disputes that. Nobody disputes that. To say that it's going to be a burden, Nobody disputes that. To say that it would be nice if the state was giving us money instead of taking it away, nobody disputes that either. But we have a very simple choice here. And yes, we don't have a down to the penny count for this. And we probably won't know for a couple of years into the project what the exact cost is. But we're going to have a very good estimate.
Oh, no, we'll know. We're
going to have a very good estimate, and we're going to be able to continue to learn about this before November. So yes, we have a deadline that's imposed on us by state law, August 7th, the first Wednesday in August. But this is very simple, and I hope if people are listening, please run into Ms. Musto at the grocery store, because maybe she doesn't like her email, but she likes to be spoken to at the food center.
Mr. Zoll, please.
If you see Mr. Cohen at the gas station, please talk. Well, I'm just saying, Mr. Chair, if they're allowed to talk about how they like to be informed by the citizens, I'm just going to encourage folks to inform them in the way that they prefer to be communicated to.
You know, do you really think this is helping things? It's not. Really? I'm telling you, this is, believe me, 40 years I've been working for this town. This is not helping anything. And I've been biting my tongue because I'm trying to give deference to where you are tonight. But it is not. People are watching this and saying, hey, we're talking about $150 million. What did I say the term I used the other day? This is unprecedented. I don't like to show it. He's watched me hour after hour after hour. I went in for an hour yesterday, we came out after 3.5 hours. Don't think this is the 50 emails is the majority. It's not. There are people, when we walk in a town hall every day, there's someone sitting behind that desk, the greeter. They're there for a reason, because they're working off their tax credits because they can't afford to live in their homes. And we only have 60 slots. That's all we can give. 260 seniors would take those spots. We don't have 260 spots. So, and those are the people who for 20-something years have been out holding signs and fighting to keep this town the quality of life people expect. That's what they expect. But us sitting here fighting and pointing and fingers is not going to get us anywhere. When I tell you about strategy, this is going to take strategy. And if Sheila and Tony were back in this, Mr. Rell and Ms. Egan were back in this room right now, they would agree with me. They would agree with me. I've sat there and listened. It's hard. Mr. Matthews was right. He was right on the vote. It's going to be close. Either way, if we put them together, it's going to be close. But we owe the citizens of this town one thing: leadership. No one here has ever said a word about not voting. No one here has ever said a word about not supporting schools. No one. This school vote has nothing to do with MBTA. This school vote has to do with asking the citizens of this town to exclude the restrictions of Proposition 2.5. And I tell you as one who has been on that side on more times than I can count, do not for a minute think that 50 emails or even 20 people coming here at Citizen Speak is going to get you there by itself. It won't. It won't get us there. Leadership is what is going to get us there. And I apologize, but we can't get anything done being like this. What does this say about us? We're all elected. People put us in this position. And to people care about, I'll just as soon quit in any other race I'm running for than to violate the trust of the citizens here. And I don't care whether they're a yes or I'm thinking about everyone. From the 6-year-old that says build me a school to the 96-year-old that is living week to week. That can't afford to cut their grass, they can't afford to get food. That is what we're responsible for. And we, as a board, cannot take this. I've never said, ever, that we shouldn't vote. What I've said is this needs to be strategic. And emotion is part of it. But this is a battle between your head and your heart. You have to bring them together where your heart emotionally is telling you your town needs this, but your head is saying to you, how is the best way we do it? Because even though the debt exclusion override will not have a number on it, believe me, we're going to have to sell that number. I told, you heard me, I said to Shawn O'Rourke last week, I am not walking out of this meeting today without telling the citizens of this town a number. And in that room was the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, the town treasurer, the town administrator, and the town accountant.
So we didn't hear that.
No, because for me, I feel it's incumbent upon me as chair to make sure that chair to chair, and we're talking, how many times have you heard me say the word to Ms. Chair Carroll? Lockstep. Have you heard me say that? I've said that more times than I can count her. And because I feel she's never been through this. And I have great admiration. I can see it's uncertain times for her, and I'm trying my best to give her strategies in different ways to how we get this accomplished. But sitting here, pointing fingers and looking in the rearview mirror and falsehoods and this and that and the other thing is not going to get us there. And I apologize for showing emotion, but sometimes we have to stay focused on this enormous, because this isn't just the school. The debt is every nickel,
I know.
every nickel we had this year went to the schools.
I know.
Every other town was sent hat in hand, don't ask, go away. Every gain they made this year, they lose next year if they don't have an operation override. In every other department, we're talking about loss of firefighters, we're talking about no police officers and cruisers, we're talking about libraries being closed, DPW cuts, every single council on aging, this building we sit in, that so many people come here every day and depend on, that most people don't even think about, but this is the lifeblood for so many seniors in our town. I've said enough.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a clarifying question?
And I apologize.
Because you said that we're violating the voters' trust, and I just...
I did, and I don't mean, I apologize, what I mean that is that people, they put the trust in us to lead this community.
So we can have different opinions to lead the community.
But finger pointing is not going to do that. I didn't say you didn't know. I didn't say. I apologize.
Okay, so I just want this to be crystal clear that the voters' trust has not been violated by anybody on this board.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
So we're just going to take a breath on that one.
I agree.
Okay. So I hear you when you say that 50 emails is not a lot. I am just telling you my experience since I've been here.
I get it.
And so, well, we will defer to you as to when we have to do this. I think it might be relevant that we know that we have 2 dates before we have to make this decision on August 7th. So if you want this to be a vote that we take, it will have to be on the agenda before August 7th.
It's going to be July 25th.
So you mean
Or whatever,
July
July
23rd.
23rd. So July 23rd, we're going to take a vote. And are we going to hear from Sean O'Rourke, Mr.
Well, we're going to
O'Rourke?
have to name a number, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to, so we're all breathing. We're all good. I know those people that are working at the front. They're my clients, a lot of them. So I hear you on that. I hear you, Mr. Chair. This is emotional. It's really difficult. And I think that we are debating this the best that we can, given the tools that we currently have on the select board. So thank you for saying that we're going to vote on this on the 23rd. I appreciate you for saying that.
So let me follow up with that. So one of the things that we've talked about, the chairs have talked about, that Chair Carroll is bringing to the school committee, one by one, because they don't have a meeting, that I'm going to propose to each of you to think about tonight, not to decide, is that my feeling, and we've had Amy in there, we've had Joanna in there, we've had, and I'll be honest, I've talked to many people, especially former electeds of every entity in this, because sometimes I say to myself, how did I wind up being the one in this chair now? These are always the people that I always looked up to. So, I draw, you hear me laugh very often. I always say, God, I wish John Cronin was alive right now. But one of the things that I have said, that I have really personally struggled for, I've been advocate on, listening particularly to the money part, is to do them together. And Chair Carroll has come around to that as well. So the thought my question, what I'm saying to each of you tonight, you don't have to answer me, you don't have to comment, I just want you to think about it, is I believe we have to do them together because we have no choice but to protect that operational overhead. That as select board members, that is our primary fiduciary. We have to protect services. Because you've heard me, I've said to the superintendent, like, okay, what's one of the worst scenarios you could present? And one of them would be to pass a debt exclusion and then lose an operational. So now you're building a building, you can't put any people. And it's like, so that the second part to that question is there are only two possibilities. You do them in November or you do them in the spring, one or the other.
Then I think we have to do
I'm not saying we're dead.
Okay. You looked at me like I was
I just wanted to make sure. I'm only giving this to you is to like think about it. I don't want to talk about it anymore. We're going to move on. I said to Nick yesterday, I said I'm going to present this to all the other members tonight to think about it. I don't want to debate it because it's too big a thing you need to think about this. But one of the things I suggest to all of you is I think about Erin might have a better idea. Ms. Bradley might have a better idea because she sits on finance. So I did that and by the way, I did that to make it easy for people who are here for the first time. I just
Mr.
said
Chair,
their first name.
It's totally fine. I'm
anyone
just pointing it out.
who knows me, I'm the father of two daughters. Women are everything in the world to me. So,
I know that. So since you brought this up, I just have a question for Nick, if I can ask him.
Sure.
So, Mr. Milano, will we have numbers that we would need to do the override if we were to do this in November?
You couldn't do it.
That becomes the challenge on two pieces. The first is arriving at a number that we think is adequate to sufficiently fund the services we want to keep and to invest in where we want to invest in.
Right.
And then the second piece is guaranteeing to the town that that's how the money will be spent since we're not approving a budget. So procedurally, do I think there's a way to make that work? Yes, I think we would have to have a written agreement between this board and the school committee as to what the numbers is and how that gets broken out. And then there's, educating residents about doing it in a new way. Towns have voted on the override ballot question before town meeting, but sometimes it's usually a little bit closer to each other. So there's that risk of having a vote in November on an operating override knowing we're not setting a budget until April. So it's a possibility, but there are challenges brought on by it.
Especially since we have an election in April for new town meeting members, and we wouldn't vote on it until May. That might be a sticky wicket if we do this in November.
That's another component of it for sure.
It's a discussion. I just wanted to know the answers.
Well, the board and the school committee, select board, and any other committee that wanted to be part of any kind of written understanding and agreement could commit themselves to it, but certainly the members will change.
I understand. Thank you so much.
Can I follow up on so what part of what my concern has been, especially between the relationship between the superintendent and the town administrator is, because you know how things rise and pressures come to pull money from, as we saw this year again, and that's where, because you'd be preemptively passing an override earlier than later. If you did it, possibly, earlier than later. Even if you do it in April, you're potentially doing it earlier than later, because they're usually in June.
Right, no, I know. I know, look at
You'd have to have, and Braintree needed 16 and only went for 8 because they've never passed one.
Right, and they're still laying off 43 teachers.
So the superintendent talked about that with us. I will say this, that, and I thank the chair, I thank Superintendent Burrows, I thank Assistant Superintendent Pavlicek, who's been dealing with his own struggles this week. Say a prayer for his wife, who's been through some personal health issues this week, but is doing well. They have not said no. We have met. I mean, even today, the chair is away on a personal thing. Do not call me. She called me, and I said, "What are you doing calling me?" I said, "Don't call me." But what happens here is, for many of the people who are coming here, the people who are writing to us, they're only being made aware of the debt exclusion and the new school. They're not seeing the needs that we have to maintain the nuts and bolts. And I refer to my late father, who spent 44 years here, and he would talk about overrides in the beginning. He says, those are the things that make sure that the quality of life that has existed here for over 300 years stays the same. And so that's pretty much the discussion we've been having. So you don't have to answer, but you have to, but that's for the Finance Committee, your finance, and moving forward, you would have to stick to that because political pressures come to try and, because once you do this, and I know some people say, oh, we'll go for an override every 3 years. It's not going to happen. It never has. It's not going to. Ms. Musto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of questions for Nick. The PowerPoint that you showed us, will you also forward that to us?
Sure.
And then the other questions I have were with regards to any kind of an override, debt exclusion or whatever. We get our homes revalued every 5 or 6 years, and those evaluations usually go up, usually do not go down. So I wonder if when you're tracking this out and how much people will be paying with these, if you're able to factor in a factor with that, because typically when you're doing projects, they go up as you pull more money. And I'm just wondering, you know, if the home valuations, for instance, last year went up on average X percent, I think you have to factor that in. The other thing is, I think when you're factoring how much people will pay, I don't really like when you say the average home. I think it's good to have it per 100,000 because I think people can understand that and wrap their head around per 100,000, this is what you'll be paying.
Sure.
And so I think those things would be important. And the final thing I would say is I would appreciate if I wouldn't be personally attacked every time that I speak going forward. And anyone who knows me knows I'm a truthful person. So I just think that it's, as Chair Wells had said, you know, people need to work together, and I don't think that's collegial to do that. So I hope that going forward that all of us will think about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so the one last thing I just want to add, and this is a caveat, there's not really much we can do about it yet, but it's up on Beacon Hill. It's wrapped into the Municipal Empowerment Act, is the ability for cities and towns to bond projects like this for 40 years versus 30 years. And that, you know, being able to spread forward, make the mayonnaise cover the bread more, it's a little bit thinner, it would be important. And it's not at the point where it's before the reps. I don't think it's even, am I right? It's not even.
I think it's in committees.
It's in committees, yeah. It hasn't even made it, but the good thing is getting it passed is critical because even if we pass this, regardless whether it's in November or the spring, we could rewrite the bond for 40 years versus 30 years, and that is really important because there's Mr. Milano, you might remember, when we bought the land for St. Agatha's, land you can bond for 50 years. Projects like this you can't. So 40 years would make a big difference. Go ahead.
Just a quick question for Mr. Milano. I know we want to move on, but it would be true to say that the last 2 times that we had a debt exclusion vote in the fall and an override in the spring, an operational override in the spring, both passed.
I don't know the history that well, that far back. So
okay, I have the.
If you do that, I trust the.
So that happened in 2005 and in 2000. Just for everyone to know that if we have a debt exclusion in the fall and an operating override in the spring, the last 2 times that's happened, both passed successfully.
But I think that debt exclusion had money, like you and I have talked, if we'd even had 30% on this project, it would have made that big. I mean, this is one, I don't remember, we were at a thing, it was a city council, we were talking to, you and I, from another community who talked about, because they're building a middle school and they get 65%, and he couldn't even, he was like 100% by yourselves. He goes, it's daunting. I couldn't even imagine trying to do something like that. So, okay, moving on. Something we're all going to agree on. Item 5, post office parking in East Milton Square. Mr. Milano, I'll let you go first. I've already vented enough for tonight. Thank you. And I apologize for my unusual temperament tonight. Sorry. Take care.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just looking for, so I had drafted a letter for the select board to review. I hope that made it into the packet. I thought it had.
I don't see it.
I didn't see it.
I didn't see it either. I was actually
not make it
today.
No?
Is it at the end?
The very end, page 87 and 88.
That was not where it was supposed to be. They're usually in order of the agenda item.
I saw it.
You want me to paint the picture a little bit here? So I asked Mr. Milano for this. I know you probably all see it. I know Mr. Cohane sees it. So about 4 years ago, it was a recommendation when I was chair of the traffic commission, was that we were going to, as part of the East Milton project, Howard Stein Hudson had recommended making Edge Hill and Boulevard one way, one down, one up. And in that, they converted all the parking spaces on Edge Hill to angular. We didn't gain any, but it made flow of traffic much easier. Somehow, in the 2 years since this has happened, the United States Post Office has taken over every space. In fact, if you drive by on any given day or night, I mean, I've heard it from the MAC, I've heard it from residents, and the police department has tagged them because it's a restricted time limit, but the United States postal vehicles are not registered. They do not have a license plate, so there is no way in the Commonwealth to actually tag a vehicle which doesn't have a plate on a public way. So I said to Mr. Milano that I wanted to bring them in here first, but he suggested that we send a letter, and so I think we need to address this because it's just, not only do they take all those spaces, they park all day they park on holiday, they take a lot of spaces, and anyone who goes to the square, whether you live in East Milton like we do or you just go there for whatever reason, parking is a premium, and I especially sympathize with the MAC because they have a lot of events at night, and people go there, and all the spaces are full for post office trucks. They're not even being used.
No, I have to haul my guitar across the square.
They're not even being used. So, Mr. Milano's drafted the letter. If it's all right with you, if you can at least start the way. Go ahead, Ms. Musto.
Thank you. I would just suggest that we also send it to Congressman Lynch because this is a federal post
Someone else
office.
said that too.
I think that we should send it.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
I mean, I walked it yesterday. I mean, the grass is 3 feet tall. Come on, it was designed to be one of the centerpiece buildings in that square. It's such a unique design, and I don't know what they're doing, but are you okay with it? Are you all right with the letter? Okay.
Yeah, no, Nick Connors drafted it, and so I think we're good to go. And we do ask
It is a good letter.
We do ask that that we're able to set up a meeting just to go over the issues with them, and if we're unable to schedule that meeting or get any response, we can continue to follow up and chase with some additional pressure.
My only question is,
I was just going to make a motion.
Where did these trucks come from? Where were they before? They never parked there when it was regular spaces. What made this happen? What? Go ahead, Mr. Zoll, I apologize.
No, you're absolutely right, Mr. Chair. But I would also like to move to approve the draft letter with the amendment to also address it to Congressman Lynch and the Postmaster General regarding parking at the East Milton Post Office.
I'll second.
Seconded by Ms. Musto. All those in favor?
Aye.
Moving right along. Thank you. Item 6, discussion of the Milton Fire Station, which is Engine 2, which future use and disposition. You want this, Mr. Musto? I guess I thought Mr. Walsh was coming, but he's not.
Well, that's I wanted to. I think I may have failed to properly coordinate with him. So
why don't we move? All right. So let's. Why don't we defer this to when he can be here?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
And just as an update for the board, so we're moving into pre-qualification for bidders and contractors for the East Milton Station. So that is moving forward, and then, as this agenda item suggests, it's time to start thinking about what are we going to do with the station once it is vacated, which still is somewhat down the line, but a lot of work goes into selling municipal land, if that's the choice of the select board. So start thinking about, do we want to keep the building if we sell it? Do we want the building to stay? Do we want to put other kind of restrictions on that property? And so just start to germinate, and then we can pick up the conversation at a future meeting.
Oh, I'm germinating.
So
Let's say I'm fermenting at
There you go.
about a brew pub.
So.
Sorry, I couldn't help
Don't
it.
ever commit a crime, will you, dude? You're not going to get away with it. I wasn't even thinking. What Chair Walsh will have, they've got some appraisals on what it's worth. It does need some significant work on that floor, and I do know that it does have some significant value. So let's bring him in, and then we'll talk about that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. One of the possibilities that they've talked about for us is that perhaps we move, because like if they start in August or so, whenever that's only a 9-month project from start to move in on that. It's a single engine station, a single response station. So is it if we could do this and come to a successful conclusion, whatever it is, that whatever the disposition is, should it be sold or leased or rented or whatever, that the purchaser, leaser, or renter rents it back to us for a couple months till we're ready to move in, so to let them get that. Okay. Item 7, discussion approval town board and committee appointments and reappointments in accordance with the list below.
Mr. Chair, I would
Go ahead.
like to move to reappoint the following individuals to the Commission on Disability for a 3-year term. Natalie Bellamere, James R. Brown Jr., Ashley Fawcett Green.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move to appoint the following individuals as members of the council.
Hold on, we're going to defer. We're going
Oh,
to
sorry.
defer. We're going to defer.
Deferring
I'm sorry,
that
we're
one?
going to defer council on aging till.
Then I would like to move to appoint the following individuals to the Climate Action Planning Committee for a 1-year term. Fiona Jaban, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, Kim Johnson.
Mr. Zoll, can I interrupt you?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
We're actually, these are for climate action planning, these are the candidates.
Do we
but
not have spots for all of them?
We have one youth spot for Reagan Gilmartin, if the board is interested in appointing, and then there are 3 additional positions available of this group, if the board.
Did we get a recommendation from the
From
Climate
them?
Action Planning Committee?
No.
We did not.
All right.
And I only know one of them.
So
I know
why
one of
don't
them,
we,
too.
I know one.
Yeah, I
for
know too.
one, can we just, I move to appoint Reagan Gilmartin, the Milton High School student, to the Climate Action Planning Committee for a 1-year term.
Second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So you want to take some time to think about this and then each submit?
Can we ask the Climate Action Planning Committee to tell us their views?
Do they have a chair?
Yes, Alex Hasha is still the chair, and they had reached out beforehand, but I can follow up with him because we got some additional applicants since we last heard from
Okay.
Alex.
Then we should
Okay, yeah, then let's
consider
defer to
everybody.
He's not listed, right?
He's already been
Alex,
reappointed
He's
chair.
not on.
He's the
Yeah,
chair.
he's the
He
chair.
doesn't
He's
need
not
to
on
be
this.
reappointed.
He's not
Oh,
on
these
this.
are just appoints, okay.
Okay, then maybe I will ask, is there anything that might hold up the Equity and Justice for All
No,
Advisory?
sorry.
No.
I'll go.
So I will move to reappoint the following individuals to the Equity and Justice for All Advisory Committee for a 1-year term. Kevin McElhaney, Kenji Matire, Sarah Myrie, Jane Ogata, Ralph Parent, Sarah Porter, and Yolanda Thomas, with apologies for mispronunciations.
Do we have
I'll
a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Musto. All those in favor?
Aye.
Historical Commission.
All reappointments, yep.
So I'll move to reappoint the following individuals to the Historical Commission for a 3-year term. Ellen Anceloni, Meredith Hall, Frederick McFadden, William Mullen, Mary Noble, Stephen O'Donnell, and Linda Weld.
I'll second.
Second
Can I
by
ask a
Ms.
question?
Sure.
Is Ms. Hall the appointment from the planning board?
No, I think she's
No.
been on it. I think she's just.
Okay.
She is from the
They
planning board?
don't have
Okay,
a spot on
all
there?
right.
The planning board doesn't?
No, this is just, she's been
Okay.
serving on the
I just was-
historical
She's
Why
been on,
don't
I
they
think,
have a
since,
spot
she's
on
been
there?
on it since before she was on the planning board. If my-
That's
if my memory's
awesome. I
correct.
just thought
It's
it was
funny
a
they don't
planning,
have a
yeah.
spot, yeah.
Sorry, I was just trying to figure that one out. Go ahead. Oh, seconded, yes.
Seconded, yeah, it's
Yeah.
been seconded.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
So we're okay on the next one?
Yep.
Candidates for reappointment, sorry, I'd like to move to reappoint the following individuals to the Local Historic District Study Committee for a 1-year term. Andrew Hoffman, Larry Loeffler, Ryan McLean, William S. Mullen, and Douglas Skybeck.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye. I would
Wait.
like to move
Whoop,
to,
whoop, whoop. No?
Well,
we
what's,
have one more for that's a
a new
appointment
appointment.
instead of a reappointment.
can we do that or no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's
I'd like
room
to.
for it, yeah. I'd like to move to appoint the following individuals to Local Historic District Study Committee for a 1-year term. Brian O'Halloran,
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Municipal Broadband. I would like to move to reappoint the following individuals to the Municipal Broadband Committee for a 1-year term. Joseph Chamberlain, Mark Day, Robert F. Lynch Jr., John E. Sullivan.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I would like, we're all good on this one too?
Yes.
I would like to move to reappoint the following individuals to the Shade Tree Advisory Committee for a 1-year term. Laura Beebe, Nancy Chisholm, Merida Manning Cronin, Maura Doherty, William Madden, and Fred Taylor.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
You just slap me if they're
Nope,
sure.
you're
no,
right.
good, okay.
All good.
I move to reappoint the following individuals to the Sign Review Committee for a 1-year term. Lawrence Johnson, Deborah Azarad Savona, Douglas Sybeck, Laura Simodi, John Zykowitz.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I move to reappoint the following individuals to the Telecommunications Design Review Committee for a 3-year term. Sean Fahey.
Second. Does someone second that?
Second.
Second by Ms. Musto. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, now you're on a new appointment.
Okay, now move to appoint the following individuals to a Telecommunications Design Review Committee for a 3-year term. Tim Lyons.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Move to reappoint the following individuals to the Trustees of Affordable Housing Trust for a 1-year term. Thomas Callahan, Kathleen Conlon, and Julie Kramer.
So I believe we have,
I second that.
no, you can, I know you second it. I think there's, all right, so go ahead. Okay, you can second that, but I think you need to,
Do we
you
need
have
to
to do them,
have a
you have to do them
discussion?
individually. No, you have to do them individually. So why don't we do them one at a time? Let's start with Julie Kramer as the chair. So make her the vote.
I will move to reappoint Julie Kramer to the Trustees of the Affordable Housing Trust for a 1-year term.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Move to reappoint Kathleen Conlon to the Trustees of Affordable Housing Trust for a 1-year term.
I'll second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye. Move to appoint Thomas Callahan to the Trustees of the Affordable Housing Trust for a 1-year term.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No, he said aye.
I was.
Well, I'm confused.
He said
You
aye.
said aye.
You
One
said aye?
second, I'm confused.
Yeah,
Can I clarify?
yes. I would also like a clarification as to why we wrote these out individually.
In all the other ones, we voted in for reappointment and we voted in the appointment. Are you saying there's not enough positions here? Because I didn't know
Oh,
that.
no.
No,
There were not.
we have actually.
We could vote
another
all 5 of
We have
these?
vacancies on this, even
Right.
beyond the.
But we can vote all 5 of the, 1, 2,
Yes.
3,
Yeah.
4, 5, so then I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Is there abstentions?
Nope.
Okay.
Oh, abstention? All right, so all those, next one.
Okay, move to appoint the following individuals. Do you want these individually too, or can we do them as
Sorry
a?
about that.
No, you're
I
right.
think
Since
we
I sit
only
on this
have-
one, I know that
I
we
think we only
have,
have one. Don't we only have one?
there's 2 listed on the warrant, or on the
But how many
agenda.
positions do we
I
have?
think we only have one
Up to
position.
9,
There's,
right?
yeah, there's 4 open spots right now.
So they could both make it in.
Then we can both make it
Alright,
in,
so I'm
and
gonna-
it's a great committee, so 2 more people for
the
those
whole
at
thing?
home. We can,
Oh,
we want them
I
all.
was wondering where you were.
Yeah,
To the
that
camera.
way, the camera.
All right, hold on one sec.
I'm a little confused.
Why?
Because I was understanding there's only one position, one open.
No, there's
You sure?
4 open positions.
On the
4 open
Affordable Housing
positions.
Trust.
Yes.
After we do all these.
Okay,
There's still 4.
make your motion.
Yeah, there's
That's
still,
what I'm saying.
Okay.
yeah, there's
There
still,
is?
there's 2 more slots. That's why I keep advertising.
There's
for-
2 more after we do all these.
Okay.
Okay, so I move to appoint the following individuals to the Trustees of Affordable Housing Trust for a 3-year term. Warren Lizio and Matt Morong.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Item 8, Mr. Zoll.
So this is just a very brief request from the Affordable Housing Trust. So the Planning Board, the Select Board, and I know that the other organizations have appointed folks to the review committee for the Town Farm project. So the Affordable Housing Trust is requesting that we meet as the governors of the Stoughton Trust trustees at our next meeting, so that we can get that committee in motion.
So we haven't appointed anyone yet, though?
The trustees have
We
not.
appointed.
No.
Right. No, I don't think we did. I don't think
I thought we
didn't.
appointed you, because we said I.
No, we didn't
No,
do
we
it.
didn't
Neither one of us
appoint
did it.
anything.
We said, we didn't do it.
Do you not remember being appointed?
Well, there's been a lot of
I'll look back through
meetings.
the minutes. I thought we appointed Ms. Bradley, but either way,
No,
we should meet as the Governor Stoughton Trust to
Oh,
then.
to look at the plans?
Yes, just to review the plans.
Yes, I was appointed to that.
You sure?
Yes.
You
Yeah.
would have double checked that.
The full committee was never set up. What the
Yes.
trustees did is they designated one trustee, but then we had reached out to the other boards as well as to
Correct.
abutters and in the
Yeah,
neighborhoods.
so we have
for
3
names.
people, 3 abutters and
Right.
1 non-abutter expert. The Affordable Housing Trust has a recommendation. We have a recommendation. The Planning Board has a recommendation.
Correct.
And that's just to
Historical Commission as
review.
well.
The plans.
To review the plans, which are then presented.
Correct.
to
Yes,
the-
I was appointed to that
Yeah,
last
so it's not
year.
like a
No.
final, it's just a review committee.
Correct.
So that's the only request.
Okay, I
is
got it.
that we
Okay,
met.
all right. Mr. Milano?
Sorry, Mr. Chair. Town Administrator's report. I feel like I did not prepare for that this evening, so I will share updates in another means. The Select Board Landing Committee had a nice outdoor meeting down at the landing to hear from Scott McKay about the Wharf Park project, as well as review activities at the landing this morning. So we'll report more fully on that at our next meeting as an agenda item. But at this moment, nothing else. Mr. Chair, I'll defer back to you.
I think, just to follow up, I think we would, the landing committee did not vote today. I think we will make a recommendation to this board, but I think we will want to support that WAF project before the CPC.
Great.
He has 3 options, which I had sent. Did he send that just to our committee, or did that go to?
I didn't see it.
I just
So
said committee.
can we send that out to the whole board so
Yep,
they can see
I
it
can do
tomorrow? They have 3 options that are out there. I think the number he's talking, Scott, was like 7. Did I hear 750? Did he say 750?
Around 7, yeah.
I've gone to both presentations just to listen. They're each uniquely different. They've been well attended, all of them. There does seem to be a lot of support. I'm personally, I'm not going to. I'm glad that's staying there. But so I would say we'll have a meeting again to have something to report to you. But let's get you guys so you can all see them.
That'd be great.
They're very unique. Nothing else?
No, Mr. Chair.
So
Can I ask
Ms.
the-
Bradley, absolutely.
Thank
you can
you
ask anything you want.
so much.
It's 8:49. You've
This
got
will
11
be
minutes.
quick as possible. I wanted to ask Mr. Milano how the recording of the boards and committees, or the boards, were going, because we haven't had an update on that. And I'm just going to be honest, I've not looked on MATV for all of those wonderful recordings.
I don't think you can yet. You have to be approved by the AG.
The
first.
bylaws is not in effect yet.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Municipal law
much.
unit needs to.
There you go.
And so
sign
when
off on it.
are we expecting that, at some point this year?
I'd say I'd say probably end of September.
Okay.
October.
Thank you
timeframe.
so much.
But I will let you know if that changes.
Can I ask Mr. Milano a question too, very quick?
This seems like the only place we can
That's
talk to you.
The website for contacting town meeting members, it doesn't seem to, has that really been set up yet?
We reached out and got very little interest. So the moderator and the town clerk and I haven't regrouped on where to go from here, but we had not a lot of responses, so
How
it didn't
did
feel
we
like it was
reach out?
sufficiently. We had reached out through emails to town meeting members at the beginning of this year.
I don't remember receiving that as a town meeting member. To have to be able to get, if somebody wants to write to all their precinct members, it goes as a blast.
That should have happened. We were supposed
We didn't
to.
collect much responses when we reached out on it.
Could I ask that we get maybe check back on
Sure.
when that was sent? Because I don't remember as a town meeting member
I didn't
receiving
get
that
anything
email.
as a
Yep.
town meeting member.
And so it would be important, I think, to make sure that we're following through on that.
Yeah, I can do that. That's
People
fine.
deserve to be able to communicate with
Ms.
their town meeting
Musto.
members.
Thank you. I have a question for Mr. Milano. Well, a comment and a question. The
Well,
first,
now we're going to have 2 froms. You're going to write in.
It'll be the Mr. Milano
It's my
Q&A.
report, not Q&A.
so that when you go on to the boards and committees, and even any of the boards or committees that you go on to, what's happening is that when you go on there, you don't find the minutes on that frame where
Yep.
you have to go to the agenda and minutes.
Correct.
And so is there a way, I think before it used to be on, when you clicked on to the specific
was.
board, it was on there, and I'm wondering, I think sometimes people are like, we don't have minutes for X, Y, and Z, but they are there.
Just have to go to the second
Right,
level.
and so I'm just wondering, is there a way to put them on that other page? I've gotten that as a couple of comments, and the second comment I've got is, and I know Ms. Bradley will laugh at this because we haven't gotten all the minutes up to date. You know how that's my big thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the committees, again, we're missing, and I mean, I'd have to go through and look again, but we are missing a significant number of minutes, And so my concern is, if committees are meeting and they don't have minutes, maybe we should consider some kind of a message to them that,
Sure.
if you're behind in 2 or 3 months, then you really can't meet because we don't really know what's going on those. So I do think that is an issue.
Right. And if they're not meeting, then that's also an issue.
We can do a little survey on who's where and follow up. In terms of putting minutes on individual board and committee pages, it's not how the site is structured to work that way. However, some committees have at the front, when you click on their name,
Yeah.
it says agendas and minutes and says to view our agendas and minutes, click here. So it's a
Yeah.
direct link, but some pages don't have that, so we can clean it up so that they all have the same notice when you click on the Cultural Council Committee, the first thing you see is how to see their agendas and minutes to direct you to the Agenda Center. The benefit of the new way it's set up is if you're looking for minutes for a committee, now they're all there for all of the years, so it's structured slightly differently, but we can make that.
Just if I could direct them to
No,
it,
that
please,
change we
because
can
I
make,
think that
yep.
is a problem because
Right.
not everybody does that second step.
No, I agree, yep.
So that would be great. Thank
That's
you.
fine.
We good?
That's my only question.
Thank you for the Q&A.
Okay.
Sure. No, anytime.
Okay, so in my report, I just do want to say thank you to everyone who came to Milton Music Fest again this weekend. It was our 11th year. There were well over 3,000 people came over the 2 days, and I would be remiss not to thank so many volunteers, but especially the town departments, Public Works, Consolidated Parks, who really helped us do this. It's just an amazing thing to see a field that sat idle for so long, to have so many come to it each and every year, and I'm very grateful on behalf of our committee to everyone who took part in that. And that's it. So then we're going to go public comment response. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's right.
I think we had enough of that for tonight, but
I just want to make sure that it's on the record for public comment response, is that you, Mr. Chair, said that we would be taking a vote of this on July 23rd.
you don't trust me.
I just want it
I
on
said it.
record. I do
It's
trust
on
you.
tape.
That was the response.
It's on tape.
It was, I just want to say it because now this is public comment and that's all we heard about for the last two times, so I just wanted to say it.
Agenda minutes, so looking to approve, a discussion on approval of meeting minutes for December 28th and March 15th. This will
Yep.
not include
Yes.
Mr. Cohen, because he wasn't here for either of those.
So, Mr. Chair, my understanding, in case people at home are wondering, we had this clarified earlier, that the reason we're approving minutes from December 28th and March 15th is that these were short meetings that led into executive sessions at irregular times and hadn't, just for administrative reasons, come up for approval before. So in case people are wondering, as I wondered why we were doing this, I just wanted to say that. And then I would like to move to approve the meeting minutes for December 28th, 2023 and March 15th, 2024.
I'll second.
All those in favor? This will be a
Aye.
roll call
Roll
vote.
call.
I'm just going to do it as well. Ms. Bradley?
Yes,
Ms.
aye.
Musto?
Yes.
Mr. Zoll?
Yes.
And myself, yes.
Abstain.
You're upset, yeah, you're off the hook. Okay, so item 13, future meeting dates. So I was going to suggest that, I found out the school committee gets the summer off. We ran for the wrong job. That we take the 9th off. There's nothing really pressing. We're going to put anything significant off till the 23rd. In absence, I'll be out of state and completely out of communication from the 5th to the 14th, on the 4th. Go ahead.
So just because I know, and again, I do not mean this as a personal attack, but I know that Ms. Musto wants to review numbers from the school building committee in advance of the vote. And I worry that if we have the school building committee presentation on the 23rd, same day, that we won't have enough time to sort of reflect on those numbers.
Well, they
And
can
so
send things
I
forward.
wonder, I'm sorry?
They could send things forward.
That's what I was going to.
Oh, yeah. He already,
Yeah.
we've already told him that the second that they know. I mean, it does bother me that you're pushing on such a big, but I believe he's going to give it to Mr. Milano the second he has
So
it.
I think if nobody has any complaints about receiving them in advance and then making the vote on the 23rd, then I think that that's fine. But I just wanted to, and yes, sorry, Ms. Mazda.
Oh, no, it's fine. I think as long as we have enough information on the 23rd, like before that and on the 23rd to make an educated decision.
And we'll have the school building committee present also on the 23rd.
Yes, briefly. We don't need. I told him we don't need a whole like.
We don't need the history,
We
yeah.
don't need the history anymore.
Okay.
So
And
the
I'm
only
fine to not
okay.
meet on the
So the only other thing is if something happens, like when Nick calls like a quick morning meeting that you could do remotely, or something that business like.
Yes, I was going to say we likely will have some end of fiscal year business to attend to between now and the 15th. So perhaps.
Between now and July 15th.
Sorry, yeah.
On the 23rd. Yeah.
So I will maybe check in with everybody for their availability over the next couple of weeks and see what might work for a kind of business meeting of a couple of
You got that,
items.
July 4th, 6 p.m.
I'm around.
Okay, so that answers that. So then
It's the
the
only
next
time
thing is,
open.
we good? So I'm going to move to item 14, which is we're going to enter into an executive session pursuant to Mass General Law 30A, to discuss response to an open meeting law complaint filed by Philip Johanning against the Milton Select Board. And so I move to adjourn from open session and enter into an executive session to discuss a response to an open meeting law complaint, to discuss a response to an open meeting law complaint filed by Philip Johanning against the Milton Select Board based on my belief that discussion of this matter in open session may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the Select Board. The Select Board will not return to open session. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Musto. I'm going to do roll call vote. Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Musto?
Yes.
Mr. Zoll?
Yes.
And myself, yes. We are adjourned. And
Do we have a second?
Sorry, there are two
Oh,
executive
yeah, we
sessions.
do. Oh, yeah, I do. Okay, so now, I move also to adjourn from and enter an executive session to approve the release of executive session meeting minutes related to litigation against the Federal Aviation Administration number 221521, United States Court of Appeals, First Circuit, dated June 29, 2022, October 5th, 2022, November 14th, 2023, December 11th, 2023, December 19th, 2023, December 28th, 2023, and January 9th, 2024. And again, the Select Board will not be returning to open session. Do I have a second?
Sure, I'll second.
Second by Ms. Musto. Roll call vote. Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Musto?
Yes.
Mr. Zoll? And
Yes.
myself, yes. Do I have one more here? I have one more, right? Do I have a third?
Nope, that should be
two.
it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, any future agenda items, if you can get them to Mr. Milano? I don't think we have enough on our plate. Okay. Motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn from, well,
No,
we
no,
already,
we
no,
already
we
did that.
already did that.
Oh, you already
because
did that,
we
yeah,
had
we
an
did
executive
that.
session, yeah.
I'm just reading the,
Yeah.
reading the friggin' Lynn's cheat sheet here. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy your nights.
Thank you.
Take care.